The GameCube is now old enough to drink alcohol in the United States, but don't give it any. It'll ruin it. And if you did ruin it, or if you're looking to buy a Nintendo GameCube for the first time ever, this guide should give you a good idea of what to expect when you go out and buy that quirky little console. My name is Nick, and this is a companion guide to my series Retronomics, which follows price trends in video games. And this video is meant to be an evergreen video, so I won't get too much into what things are going for price-wise, but I'll have a separate video that I'll link to in the pinned comment, so no matter when you see this video, the most recent pricing video will only be a click away. Think of this video as a jumping off point. I'll leave links in the description if you want to explore further. The Nintendo GameCube was released in Japan on September 14th, 2001, and then 2 months later, it was released in North America on November 18th, 2001. While the GameCube sold over 20 million units worldwide, they are starting to become desirable, so it's important if you're going to buy one now, what to keep an eye out for so that you get your money's worth. Let's take a look at the GameCube system itself. The GameCube is very small and it plays these mini DVD discs, and as such can't play DVDs. Something that used to fault the GameCube back in the day, but unless you got deep pockets, a GameCube with a DVD player isn't really necessary at all nowadays. The GameCube, like the Nintendo 64, natively supports up to 4 players simultaneously for the games that support it. I'll go into the controllers in a little bit, but the GameCube also has 2 memory card slots on the front, and then on the back are usually 2 video ports, one for composite and the other for digital AV out, which allows games that support it to be displayed in progressive scan mode, which is 480p. It is important to note that not all GameCubes have this digital AV port, and it was removed with later revisions, so if you are looking to get the best possible picture out of your GameCube, make sure that you get one with an AV port. Other than that, every GameCube that you come across operates in the exact same way. However, the GameCube is region locked, so if you are buying one from Japan, you can only play Japanese games, and North American GameCubes can only play North American games. Of course, there are mods that can be performed, which I will get to later in this video. So great! You're ready to buy your GameCube, but what is needed for the basic GameCube experience? I think it's really important to figure out what you need. Some listings for GameCubes only include the system itself, and you'll need the GameCube, of course, but you'll also need a controller, AV cables, a power supply, and a memory card if you want to save your progress. The good news is that most of these things can be bought aftermarket, except for the power supply. There are apparently third-party ones, but I can't really recommend them in good faith, so make sure that your bundle includes it, or make sure to buy an official one separately. Otherwise, yeah, you can do a lot with third-party stuff. Obviously, I recommend all original stuff, but if you want to save some money, especially for the wireless options, nothing is wrong with the third-party options. Speaking of controllers, the GameCube, like I mentioned, supports 4 players simultaneously, so you'll maybe want 4 controllers eventually, but if you're just starting out, 1 or 2 is perfectly fine. There are 2 official GameCube controller types, wired and wireless. The official wired controllers are more prevalent and range from $20 to $50, used depending on the condition and the color. For a bit, Nintendo did make new controllers for use with Smash Bros. Wii U and Switch with the GameCube USB adapter. Although a lot of people suggest that they aren't as solid as the original, which I can kind of agree with. If wireless is more your speed and you want something official, then the Wavebird is going to be your best bet. What makes the Wavebird so special is that it's the first wireless controller made by Nintendo, and instead of infrared like wireless controllers used to have, it uses a radio signal to communicate, and this means that the controller doesn't have to have line of sight and you can use multiple controllers at once. You just change the frequency depending on which controller you're using. And it seems trivial now since every modern console has an official wireless controller, sometimes included with the system, but 20 years ago this was groundbreaking. Wavebirds are pretty desirable despite not including rumble, so expect to pay at least $70 for just one. The ones that are going for cheaper are missing the dongle, which is required to use the Wavebird at all, and as far as I can tell, there aren't any third-party solutions to replace that dongle. Luckily, there are third-party solutions for the GameCube that offer a wireless option. If traditional Wavebird is your speed, you can buy the Veanic controller, which starts at $26. If you want a more modern style, the Blade GC from RetroFighters has gotten favorable reviews and starts at $40. Memory cards, a relic of the past. Memory cards are required to save any progress on your GameCube because the GameCube doesn't have an internal hard drive. Official GameCube memory cards come in 3 sizes, which is measured in blocks. I suggest getting a 251 block one instead of the standard 59. Animal Crossing, for example, requires 57 blocks, which is essentially the full card. It actually came with a card when it came out. So keep that in mind. There is a third size available for a bit more money at 1,000 blocks, so whichever you go with will work just fine. But if you're just starting out, I suggest getting a modern one like the MemcardPro. It's $65 plus shipping, so it's kind of pricey, but it offers limitless storage as they contain a slot for an SD card. A 1GB SD card can create 10,000 blocks of memory. But you also need to supply your own microSD card, assuming that you don't already have one laying around. There is also a card which has an SD card included into it, but this is for modding purposes and not for saving your games. The GameCube by default can utilize the same composite cable found with the Super Nintendo and Nintendo 64. They're interchangeable, so if you have one of those, you're good to go if the GameCube doesn't come with any. However, you might not want the bare minimum and instead want component, and that's where things get a little tricky. Nintendo did make official component cables for the GameCube, and that's where the digital AV port comes in. The only problem is that Nintendo really didn't think people wanted them in the United States, so they were only available if you ordered them from Nintendo directly, and as a result, official component cables are very expensive and have been so for a long time. Expect to spend at least $200 for an official set of cables. Thankfully, there are now alternative solutions to that rare cable, but beware of the Retrobit and Kaiko cables, as they have been accused of stealing proprietary data, and the cables don't operate exactly like the original cable does. With that being the case, I suggest getting the HDMI solutions as they work on modern televisions, especially those that don't have component, much less composite ports. I have the GC HD Mark II, which clicks into the back of the GameCube's dual AV ports and allows HDMI at 480p. And what I like about these is that you can also run the Nintendo Wii component cables for play on the CRT television. It is pricey at $160 and you need a universal remote, but if you want a no-fuss modern solution that also does component, it's a pretty good deal. There are cheaper versions like the Carby that only offer HDMI and they start at $80. Just remember that all of the component and HDMI solutions require a GameCube with the digital AV out. Newer GameCubes had this feature removed. So, other than that digital AV out and region lock, all of the GameCubes are functionally the same. Now you just need to pick your color. Yes, the GameCube came in multiple colors. In North America, you can get a GameCube in any color that you want, as long as it's indigo, black, or platinum. But Japan got some sweet variants. There's too many to list, so I'll leave a link in the description of this video, but the cool color that I wish I got was the Spice Orange variation. The other colors from different regions make the GameCube collecting scene pretty fun if you're into that sort of thing, but the one variant that I have is the Panasonic Q, which was exclusive to Japan. This thing is beautiful. Sporting a mirror finish, this GameCube was made in collaboration with Panasonic since they made the DVD drive for the GameCube. The Panasonic Q is region locked like all other GameCubes, but in addition to playing GameCube games, the Panasonic Q plays DVDs. It even comes with its own special remote and custom controller. These are coveted by collectors and as such fetch a premium for a working unit. While they look cool, they are problematic and a pain to work on. I made a separate video going into more detail a long time ago, but if you're just looking for a regular GameCube that plays games, you can't go wrong with just a basic one, and if you want to go and collect more, then you can. You probably need to know this section, right? What good is a GameCube without some games? I don't really have a definitive list of must-own titles, but there are 652 GameCube games that range wildly in price depending on the title. Some are super rare like Cubivore, which can fetch almost $600 for a complete copy, but more popular games like Mario Kart Double Dash and Super Mario Sunshine can be a bit more reasonable. There are even obscure games like Eternal Darkness that will probably remain exclusive to the GameCube forever and be more expensive as a result. I forecast 25 GameCube games on my Retronomics series, so be sure to check that out. But one thing I do feel is necessary to mention here is that the discs aren't going to last forever, and there is one thing that you should be doing to ensure that your disc is intact, especially if you're going to be spending a lot of money. Some discs have the possibility to develop these little pinholes on the surface. It's not necessarily a sign that the disc is completely worthless, but it is something to keep an eye out for because it can cause the GameCube to hiccup or not even read the disc at all. I have only run across it a couple of times even when working at a game store, but it does happen. Also, speaking of game stores, be careful about resurfacing these discs. They're not the most durable, and sometimes resurfacing can make matters worse, so proceed with caution. So, you finally got your GameCube, you got the power adapter, the controller, memory card, some games, and an AV cord. Now, there are some optional accessories that you can get. They're optional and some don't even offer a function for their value. The modem and broadband adapter are used for online functionality only, and a couple of games utilize it. The broadband adapter can connect multiple GameCubes for 16-player Mario Kart Double Dash if you have 4 GameCubes and 4 broadband adapters, and Phantasy Star Online if you know how to connect to fan servers. In my opinion, it's not really worth the extra $150 for the adapter. Like the component cables, these were pretty niche at the time, and the broadband adapter was sought after it was discovered that you could load backups of your games. Unlike the PlayStation 2 and Xbox, modding a GameCube for backups really wasn't a thing back then. The other accessory that I think is worthwhile is the Game Boy Advance adapter. Yes, the GameCube can play Game Boy, Game Boy Color, and Game Boy Advance games with the proper adapter. You can even plug your Game Boy Advance into the GameCube and use that as a controller. Of course, you can use the original GameCube controller or the one that looks like a Super Nintendo controller if that's more your liking. And if you want to use a Super Nintendo controller, actually, you can do that too with a special adapter. One thing to note is that the Game Boy Advance player does require a boot up disc, and since it's been decades from launch of the GameCube, they tend to get separated. As such, the Game Boy Advance is pretty inexpensive, but the official boot disc is expensive. A loose disc will set you back at least $125 and a complete one almost $200. While the GameCube player itself isn't region locked, I imported one from Japan because they sold them in matching colors of my GameCube, the disc is region locked. So if you are playing on a US GameCube, you need a US disc. But there are alternative solutions. Modding the Nintendo GameCube is a lot of fun, and there are a lot of non-invasive methods which lower the barrier to entry. The simple of them all is Swiss. All you need is an action replay disc, a GameCube SD card, memory card, and the Swiss homebrew software, and boom, you're ready to go. I simply used it with an action replay disc to launch the Game Boy interface, which offers a ton more options than the official Game Boy player software. Swiss is a fantastic piece of software. In addition to being able to boot any game from any region, just make sure that you have a separate memory card for each region, you can force any game to run in progressive scan mode with the proper cables, force 16:9 aspect ratio, and run any other supported homebrew. If you want to go a little bit more invasive and play games off an SD card with less load times, the GC loader replaces the optical drive in your GameCube, allowing you to play all of your backups off of one card. There's also the Pico boot, which operates in a similar way to the GC loader, although it is significantly cheaper and readily available and doesn't replace your optical drive. The trade-off being that some soldering and programming skills is required, whereas the GC loader, when in stock, is a drop-in solution with no soldering required. I'm simplifying for the sake of this video, but you can check out Rocker Mod Gaming for a great tutorial on everything Swiss. There are other mods available, like the ability to turn your GameCube controller ports into Bluetooth ports for playing with modern controllers, custom jewel pieces, and more, and there's a ton of cool stuff being pushed every day. So, you made it all this far and you don't want to buy a GameCube and instead just want to enjoy the games. I get it, so I'll include some alternatives. The first being the Nintendo Wii. Yes, it's another console, but most of them will play GameCube games. I'm not going to go too much into detail, but the Nintendo Wii is backwards compatible with GameCube games and can play Wii games as well, and you can mod it to play games off of an SD card. And at least for now, the Wii is significantly cheaper because everyone on the planet owned at least two. I had 3 up until recently. But if you don't want to buy any system and just want to play your games, then emulation is a pretty awesome solution. Dolphin, which was the code name for the GameCube, is a fantastic emulator solution that not only plays every game in its native resolution at the full frame rate, you can, with a strong enough PC, upscale up to 4K 60 frames per second. You can do 8K and above, but that's for the power user for sure. You're spending way more than a couple of GameCubes at that point. Anyway, Dolphin is a fantastic solution, and with USB adapters you can even use an official GameCube controller for the most authentic experience. The cool thing about Dolphin is that it's available on almost every computer. I'm not going to take the time to show you how to set it up, but you can check out a link to the guide in the description and the little card to get you started. And I know that you're probably looking for some free games, and I'm sorry, but I don't have any of those links because the Nintendo Ninjas would probably beat down my door. But I'm sure that you'll find an archive of 2 of games that you might be looking for just in case your backups of your legally acquired games were somehow corrupted. So that's gonna do it for this video on the Nintendo GameCube. I hope it was helpful. Let me know in the comments what you would want to see in future videos like this one. And if you're new here and you're looking to start buying some games, I suggest checking out my series Retronomics. A new GameCube video is coming out right after this one, and the most recent one will be linked in the pinned comment down below. If you like this video, give it a like and share it with those who might find it interesting. And if you really like the channel, consider subscribing for future content. You can follow me on Instagram and Twitter at Nicktendo. Thanks so much for watching. I'm Super Nicktendo, and I'll see you next time.